Picture a man crouched by a dying fire, 40,000 years ago. The others are talking, laughing, passing a story around the circle like a warm stone. He opens his mouth to join them, and nothing comes out. Not a word, not a sound, just air. Something in his throat has broken, a fever, a blow, a wound that healed wrong. And the one thing that made him a person in this group is gone. He can still see, still hunt, still love, but he can no longer speak. And in a world with no writing, no phones, no way to leave a message behind you, losing your voice was not a small thing. It could cost you everything, or it could reveal something about human beings that we've almost completely forgotten. Let's start with what the voice actually was to these people, because it was not what it is to you. To you, your voice is one option among many. You can text, you can type, you can send a photo. For your ancestors, the voice was the only library that existed. Everything the group knew lived inside spoken words. Which plants would kill you, which would heal you, where the water was in a drought year, how your grandmother survived the last one. None of it was written down, none of it could be. It was all carried in the mouth, passed from voice to ear, generation after generation. So when a person lost their voice, they didn't just go quiet. They were cut off from the single network that held the entire tribe together. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar has argued that language itself evolved as a kind of social glue. Other primates bond by grooming each other, picking through fur, one-on-one, for hours. But you can only groom one companion at a time. Human groups got too big for that. So Dunbar suggests we replaced grooming with talking, gossip, stories, jokes around the fire. Words let one person touch many at once, which means the voice wasn't just how you shared information, it was how you stayed inside the group at all. So here's the unsettling question. If the voice was the glue, what happened to the person who suddenly had none? Did the tribe leave them behind? Hold that thought, because the answer is not what you'd expect. And to understand it, we have to look at how fragile this ability really is. Speech is a machine with 100 moving parts. It needs a voice box low in your throat, lower than any other animal's. It needs a small, floating bone called the hyoid, anchoring the muscles of the tongue. It needs lips and a tongue that can move with the precision of a surgeon. And it needs something deeper, wiring in the brain. There's a gene called FOXP2. In one modern family studied for decades, a single tiny mutation in that gene shatters the ability to speak clearly. The people who carry it are intelligent. They understand words, but they cannot make their mouths obey them. The signal from thought to speech breaks, and the words come out broken, or not at all. Now imagine that same silence falling on someone in the Ice Age. Not from a gene, from an injury, a spear that grazed the throat. A childhood illness that scarred the larynx. A fall. The machine breaks, and it does not come back. So what did that person's life become? Here's where the story turns dark, and then strangely turns tender. Because for a long time the assumption was brutal and simple. In a harsh world, the weak were left to die. A hunter who couldn't call out during a hunt was a liability. A person who couldn't warn the group of a predator was a danger. By that logic, losing your voice was a quiet death sentence. But then the bones started telling a different story. Let me tell you about a man we call Shanidar 1. He was a Neanderthal. He lived in a cave in what is now Iraq, around 45,000 years ago. And when scientists examined his skeleton, they found a body that should not have survived. A withered, useless right arm, possibly amputated. A crushing injury to the left side of his face that likely blinded him in one eye. Damage to his legs that would have made every step a limp of pain. And recent studies of the bones inside his ears suggest something more. He was probably almost deaf. Think about that. A hunter-gatherer in the Ice Age, half-blind, one-armed, limping, and unable to hear the world around him. He could not have hunted. He may barely have been able to communicate. By the cruel logic, he should have died young. He lived into his 40s, possibly his 50s. An old man by the standards of his time, which means for years, maybe decades, someone fed him, sheltered him, protected a man who could give almost nothing back, so the tribe did not leave the broken behind. At least, not always. There's the old man of La Chapelle, a Neanderthal so riddled with arthritis and missing so many teeth that others likely helped prepare his food. There's a young man in Italy, Romito II, born with a form of dwarfism that would have made him unable to keep up on the move, buried with care 11,000 years ago. The bones keep saying the same impossible thing. These people carried their wounded. So the voiceless man by the fire, the one we started with, he was not automatically doomed. But that raises the next mystery. If he couldn't speak, and the group kept him anyway, how did he say anything at all? The answer might be the oldest language of all. And you use it every single day without noticing. Your hands. Many researchers believe that before humans spoke, we gestured. That language may have begun not in the mouth, but in the hands and the face. Watch anyone talk with the sound off. The pointing. The shaping of sighs in the air. The pantomime of an animal, a throw, a direction. We never stop doing it. It's underneath the words, still running. So a man who lost his voice would not have fallen into total silence. He would have reached for the older channel. He could point to the horizon where the herd had gone. Mime the shape of the danger he'd seen. Press a hand to his chest to say me, to say I'm still here. He could tap out a warning on a companion's shoulder in the dark. He might even have become the group's most watchful set of eyes, the sentinel who noticed what the talkers, lost in their stories, missed. His silence could have become a kind of strength. And here's the part that lingers. We spend our lives now drowning in voices, notifications, podcasts. A world that never stops talking. But that ancient man learned something most of us never will. He learned that connection is not the same as speech, that you can be fully human without a single word, that a hand on a shoulder, a shared look across a fire, can carry more than a sentence. Quick pause. If a lost voice finding a way to speak is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe and give this one a like. It genuinely helps these ancient people get remembered. Then stay with me, because there's one last thing the bones are telling us. For most of human history, we assumed survival belonged to the strong, the fast, the loud, the ones who could shout, command, and dominate. But the cave floors say otherwise. They say that the very thing we think of as our greatest weakness, being broken, being voiceless, being unable to keep up, was met again and again with something we like to imagine is modern: care. The man who lost his voice 40,000 years ago did not vanish from history. His people fed him, walked beside him, watched his hands. And in doing so, they proved something we're still trying to relearn. The thing that made us human was never just that we could speak. It's that when one of us couldn't, the rest of us listened anyway.